Are you DTFF?
Once again, here is Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your hosts, Dustin Lunt and Jake Trowbridge.
Well, welcome back to DTFF, everyone. I don't know if for everyone out there, if that intro was all choppy like it was on my screen. If it was, I apologize sincerely. That is not to the standards.
I thought I was having a mental episode. I really couldn't keep up. It was much slower than I was used to, and I thought it was my internal lag. So I appreciate you saying that.
No. What I think is all on my end here, of course. But welcome back, everyone. Happy Tuesday evening. If you're joining us live, thank you so much. If not, and you're listening to this after the fact, come join us live. It's way more fun. You get to see all the beautiful faces we have on the screen here, our illustrious panel of guests joining us to chop up the NFC West this evening. Before we introduce our guests, Jake, how are you doing this evening?
Doing so good. I'm doing so good because we get to talk about, in my humble opinion, and I'm not just saying this to butter everybody's bread here, one of the more exciting divisions in the NFL and in fantasy football. So that's exciting.
Well, you earn no brownie points that way with
but I gotta try.
So you can try. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's introduce our guests here. So after I introduce each of you, if you could do two things for me, please. One, what are you joining us in drinking this evening? Doesn't matter what it is. And two, how did you become a fan of your team? So let's start with our representative from the Rams, Alexis Kraft, co-host of the Downtown Rams podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So to answer your first question, what am I drinking? I am drinking a sparkling tonic that tastes just like soda. Olipop. Nice little plug for them here. You might have heard it. It's actually like a prebiotic soda type thing. It's good for you. Doctors say it's good for you, and it tastes just like soda, and it's good for your immune system and things like that. This is a strawberry vanilla flavor, but to be honest, orange squeeze is my favorite and the root beer one, but I don't have any. So we're going with strawberry tonight. Second question, how did I become a fan of my team? I was born and raised in St. Louis. I don't live there anymore, but the Rams were there when I was growing up. And my family had season tickets during the Greatest Show on Turf age. So I'm too young to kind of remember. I was like 3 years old when that was going down, but I know I was there for all the really important games and really fun times. I don't remember it, but I was there. Sadly, my earliest memories are from the Rams' very, very low period. The 2 and 14 seasons is when I really started to get into football. But yeah, and I followed them even though they moved to LA.
The fact that you came in during their low point, I think boldens and strengthens your fandom somehow. I think it gives you more kudos.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I remember wearing a Mark Bulger jersey to school and getting made fun of. Like, I just remember I didn't understand why people were like giving me such a hard time. I just thought that it was okay that your team was bad. Like, I didn't know that it was like a thing to be ashamed of. So on like sports jersey day, I wore a Mark Bulger jersey and everyone was just like giving me the hardest time and I didn't get it.
Kids are the worst.
I know.
I stand by that.
It was absolutely the teachers.
All right. And then representing the Seahawks, coming back to the show this year to talk Seahawks is Russ Fisher, co-host of the Trade Addicts Pod. Good evening, sir.
Hey. All right. Well, first question. I am drinking this new thing I found out about like last week called water. It's great.
With a straw too. It's cool.
Interesting. Is it cold?
Yeah. Oh, hold up. There's ice in this water.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Not a sponsor, by the way. Water, not a sponsor.
But water, reach out. I'm here for it if you want to sponsor. Mostly because it's 7:30 and I have kids, so I can't start drinking because they're awake and upstairs. So, I'll be drinking in spirit with you guys later tonight. All right. There you go. Now, this one's a little embarrassing. How did I become a Seahawks fan? I chose them at random. Yeah. I grew up as a kid. I live in New Jersey, so I grew up a Giants fan because that's what my dad was. And if it makes you feel any better, Alexis, I live around Jets fans. They've had it much worse. Though I've never been one. But I grew up a Giants fan, and I got out of football and gotten really into hockey. And then hockey went on strike like 5 times in 2 years somehow magically. And I was just like, nope, can't do it anymore. So I switched to football, and I'm like, I don't want to be a Giants fan anymore. Who should I be? And that was the year the Steelers beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. And I was just like, oh, man, the Seahawks got hosed on that. Their jerseys are pretty. I'm going to be a Seahawks fan.
I love it. You answered your own existential question, too, with that. Who am I going to be, you said.
Yeah.
And then you answered the pretty man in the pretty Seahawks jersey, and it's been a love affair ever since.
I know, and they even changed their jersey, and it somehow got prettier. So, it's great.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. And then representing the Cardinals, Dalton Kates, football analyst at Mojo. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys. They saved the best for last, and I'm obviously representing the best team in the division this year. And what am I drinking? Wait, drinking is first. All right. So I'm drinking very classy glass of H2O, and
bunch of water fans up in this joint.
It's filtered water too, so not just any water. Filtered, reverse osmosis, all that good stuff. So I thought I'd bring it classy here. It's a great show, so I figured I would drink the best. So doing that, and then born and raised out here in Arizona. So born in Scottsdale. My dad is from Boston, so I grew up in a Boston household with sports, and I kept seeing them win, and I got tired of it. And I said, I want to be my own person and do my own thing. And it was probably like the worst decision I made, because being an Arizona sports fan is absolutely terrible. But hey, I mean, Alexis has been through it with all that and seen some glory now. So hopefully at some point I can feel happy as an Arizona Cardinals fan.
Well, hopefully by the end of this podcast, we'll figure out a way to make you happy about it in some capacity or other. We'll see. That's a tall order. I don't want to put that hype on us too much, because I don't know if we can live up to it, but we'll do our best here.
At least you're not a Niners fan.
That's
true. Stupid
True
Niners.
that.
We
True
booted the
that.
Niners fan before they got in.
We had to get it started.
Well, as you
Stories
can see,
I
there
could
is no
share.
representative here. So, I mean, it's just fair game at this point. If no one's here to defend themselves, that's on them.
That's on them.
We have a common enemy, so we are all on the same page with that, at least.
You will all be united, and you can come together to put down the 49ers. It'll be a real sweet moment, I bet. I bet Dustin will save that team towards the end. I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Well, I think after last week and not having the Giants fan on and saving that for last, it was such a ending the show on a down note. I think we'll start with the Niners this week, just to get it out of the way, rip the Band-Aid off, and then we can get into the good stuff after that. How about that?
All right. Let's do it.
Okay. So I'll just go over this as a reminder for everyone out there. I will start off by talking about notable, I'll use that in quotes because it's not really notable on most occasions, losses and additions via free agency or trades, and then recap the draft. And then we will ask each of you to just give your thoughts on the upcoming season and how you thought this offseason has gone to date with your team. So starting off with the Niners, we've got, for their losses, Raheem Mostert and Richie James. Their additions this offseason, Malik Turner, Tyler Kroft, and Ray McLeod. And
So
in the
they didn't
draft,
try.
no.
They didn't try.
And in the draft, they took another running back in the third round, Tyrion Davis-Price. And in the third, they took Danny Gray. And in the seventh, drafted a quarterback, Brock Purdy. So since we don't have a Niners fan here to kind of give a recap, Jake, I will let you handle the recap here of the Niners and tell me what your thoughts are for the outlook for the upcoming season.
I'm happy to, Dustin. If you recall last year on this podcast, I spent way too long prognosticating about Trey Lance and how amazing he was going to be in 2021, and he was the surefire starter by week 4 to take over from Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, I was a little bit wrong. Jimmy Garoppolo is still technically with the team. He's not long for them, let's say. He should be moving on here. I don't know if there's a real trade partner anymore, maybe the Panthers, but should be Trey Lance season officially. So now we have Lance, and the big debate last year was Deebo Samuel versus Brandon Ayuk. Not going to pat us on the back too hard for that Deebo choice on this podcast, but those two still there, along with George Kittle. The backfield is still the backfield, so that's something. I think they're going to be an amazing team. I'm apologetic to all of you for saying that, but I really do think that they will be an amazing team because I love Trey Lance, and I have to believe. It's contractually obligated. I have to believe that Trey Lance will be better than Jimmy Garoppolo was last year. So I think he lifts a bunch of sails, whether for fantasy or not, I don't know. But for real life, you betcha.
Like, you have to be really low on Lance to be like, no, he's going to be worse than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Hey, don't hate on my boy Jimmy.
No, like,
no, I got respect for Jimmy.
Well, it's because you look like him. Like, he's pretty, man.
I like you.
But no, like Garoppolo is Teddy Bridgewater plus. Like, he's good for football as long as you don't need him to win you a game, but he's not good for fantasy. Yeah, he doesn't create plays. He doesn't help other players create plays. Like, if they didn't have literally like 3 of the best 5 players after the catch on their team, they would have been trashier than trash last year. But, you know, Deebo, Ayuk, and Kittle are all great after the catch. I mean, now I'm also a Lance fan, so I'm right here with you. I am ready to say, I hope everything goes well because I have been hurt too many times at being straight out optimistic. So I'm going to stick with cautiously optimistic because I think Lance is very good at reading a play. Lance is, you know, people see running quarterback or mobile quarterback, whatever verbiage you like to use, and they think, you know, I guess it works. I could say Kaepernick because Kaepernick was like, I'm supposed to pass that guy. He's covered. Run that way. Lance isn't that player. He can read 2 or 3 progressions and then make the run, which is great. And I think he is good enough at medium to low ADOT passing that it's going to fit very nice with the players they have and the game they like to play. So I am very much with you, Jake, in that I think this should be very good, but my heart is not strong enough to just say it's going to be.
I'm throwing the caution out the window. I won't even put cautiously in front of my optimism. I'm ready to get hurt again, man.
My tear ducts are bruised.
Yeah, Jake, I hate to admit it, but yeah, I'm drafting more Niners than I am Cardinals this year. And it's all because of Trey Area, baby. He's gonna ball out. I think he's gonna be super for fantasy purposes. He's just gonna shred. And I think like there's a small chance. I don't know what's going on with the Niners right now, but there's a small chance that Jimmy gets the job for some reason, which I don't understand. But I mean, he's still on the team, and I mean, training camp's starting in a month, so I think that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But assuming Trey Lance gets the job, I mean, he legitimately, I think, he's a chance to. I don't know if to the extent of what Lamar Jackson did in his second year, but like potentially be an 1,000-yard rusher with those weapons there. Yeah, it's going to be extremely exciting. So he's someone that I'm drafting like everywhere as my quarterback.
So what are we saying?
Niners still suck, but like we're
obviously. No, so are we thinking top 12 QB easy this season?
Easy,
top 10?
Top 5.
Legs alone, yeah.
All right.
I'm just not as optimistic about Trey Lance as everyone else. But that's also because I read too much into the situation. Like, why are they holding on to Jimmy Garoppolo? So
shoulder surgery.
I
they couldn't move him.
I mean, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, I also just think that Jimmy G played better than a lot of other people did. I mean, they were in the NFC Championship, and I get that everyone's like, oh, it wasn't because of Jimmy G, but I mean, it kind of was. I mean, if he was playing that bad, I don't think they would have made it to the NFC Championship, which thank God they lost, by the way, to my team. I was at that game. It was very intense, not good for my heart rate at all. But I do think that Trey Lance probably will be starting for the 49ers, obviously. And I think that he's going to I think he'll do fine. I don't know. My co-host, Trey Lance was his number one quarterback the year they drafted him. I was not as high on him, and I obviously can't quote unquote hope for him to succeed next season because he's on the 49ers, but I won't be surprised if he does.
You could hope for him to succeed, but miraculously they still lose. Like their defense is just trash. Let him shine, but let everything fall apart on the other side of the ball.
Like like everyone always says, like, how do you feel like when your fantasy quarterback's playing against your team? And I'm like, no, that's cool. Trey Lance can throw for 5 touchdowns as long as the Seahawks score 6. You know?
Absolutely.
Well, that's how I had Russell Wilson as my fantasy quarterback last year.
No, I'm sorry.
I always draft a quarterback too late, but he was my quarterback. So yeah, that put me in a position being a Rams fan.
That's not a comfortable place to be. I mean, I don't really have a comparison because the quarterbacks that a Packer fan would have to draft to get that same thing, it wasn't Justin Fields, it wasn't Jared Goff, maybe Kirk Cousins, I guess, but it's not going to feel the same.
So wait, do you guys like having fantasy players from your team on your fantasy teams? Like, do you like having Rams and Cardinals? Like, I hate having Seahawks on my fantasy teams.
They're good.
It all started like 4 or 5 years ago when I was still playing in a league with kickers, and I had house money on my team, and they scored a touchdown. I'm like, oh, come on. Did I just get sad that the Seahawks scored a touchdown? What the hell? And then I realized, I'm like, no, I don't want to limit the way I'm happy when the Seahawks score. So I just sort of stopped drafting. Okay, then DK came around, and I'm like, I can't help it. I'm drafting that man. But like most of the time, I try and avoid having Seahawks because it really was the weirdest thing where I just got sad they scored a touchdown. I'm like, okay, this is a life-changing moment. I've learned something.
That's fair. That's a good point, though. I respect that. I'm a little bit agnostic about that. Like, I don't like Dalton. I think you were kind of saying if they're good enough, I will. I normally don't get the chance, especially in like a home league where everybody's a super fan. That just never happens. But in general, I don't mind it.
Mm-hmm. Same here. All right. So the Niners have a lot of offensive weapons here. The one I want to have a little discussion about here is George Kittle. He's been so disappointing over the last few years, and he's been injured. And I hate to throw out the injury prone verbiage here because I don't believe in injury prone players. He's just had a string of bad luck. But is he still in your top 3 tight ends? I mean, typically he's one of the big 3. Do you still consider him as top 3, not only for Dynasty, but in redraft for this upcoming season? Dalton, let's start with you.
Dynasty, I do. I believe I just believe in talent. So I don't really look too much at situation. I'm a firm believer that talent always plays itself out. And I think there's a lot of question marks when you have a new quarterback change from Jimmy Garoppolo to Lance. The thing is, we don't know specifically who he's going to target. We don't know if it's going to be Debo. We don't know if it's going to be Ayuk. We don't know if it's going to be Kittle. The thing is, if Kittle stays healthy, like he is an absolute game changer at the position. I think you can make an argument for somebody like Mark Andrews there, super close. Darren Waller as well has extra target competition. So Dynasty, I have him 3. Redraft, I'll probably have him 4 behind Andrews, just because I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm just going to believe in Kittle as one of the best tight ends in the league, hands down.
All right. How about you, Alexis?
Same exact answer as Dalton. Yeah, I mean, I think when Kittle's healthy, he's one of the best in the league. I mean, I could even say for me top 2, but I think, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think it's an interesting point, seeing with the quarterback change, seeing how much he'll be targeted. It could be more. It could be less. It could, we don't know. But yeah, he seems like a really, good guy as well from what I've heard and what I've seen. So I really want him to get healthy because I hate to see guys like that always getting hurt.
All right. Russ.
No, no. Though I know a few people that have met George Kittle, and he is as awesome as he seems, by the way. At least that's what I've heard. And dresses fantastically.
Oh yeah.
Like
Always
ridiculously
important.
loud print rompers. It was it was something I would never for the life of me do, but good for him for being able to pull that off. I mean, especially in Dynasty, I mean, I have Pitts, Andrews, Kelsey as my top 3. You can't not put him top 5, even though I don't like saying injury prone either, but soft tissue is a little different where some people's hamstrings just aren't what other people's are. Like AJ Brown, I don't think he's ever going to play a full season. Kittle's the exact same way. He always tweaks something, pulls something. And he missed 3 games last season. That's pretty normal these days to miss 2 or 3 games. And he was at, my Trade Addict scoring has the 0.75 premium, but he points per game. He was easily tight end 3. But with the change in the offense that is going to happen with, I think, an evening of I think tight ends are going to mush together a little bit because the Ravens are going to throw less. The Chiefs are going to be a really weird offense without a Tyreek Hill there. And Waller with Adams. I think we're going to find this big mush of tight ends, and clearly with Pitts just 3,000 miles away from everyone else because he's Kyle Pitts. That I don't think I would spend to get Kittle. It's funny. Give me Schultz plus. That's been my answer to almost every tight ends question. Just give me Schultz plus and I'll be fine. Move down a little bit. Will he finish as a top 5 tight end? Most likely. But he's also 28, turning 29. And dynasty players are ageist is nice. they get straight up mean the second you hit upper 20s as a wide receiver or tight end, even though we've seen plenty of tight ends play into their mid 30s just fine. But the combination of everything Kittle has going on, he's at the bottom of a tier, in which case I'll just wait 2 more players and grab someone I feel just as comfortable with and not have to spend as much.
And just in case you're curious, because you brought up a great point about kind of if you can wait to get him. And currently, if you're doing underdog best ball drafts, he's the tight end 5 currently and can be had in the 5th round very often. So that's the type of thing where if a guy like that falls, I will take those 13 to 14 very healthy games and very robust fantasy points and then just deal with the few that he misses.
Yeah, 5th round is great price.
Absolutely. All right. I feel like we've had enough Niners talk. What do you think? Since no one's here to defend them, let's move on. All right. Let's move over to the Cardinals here. So notable losses: Chase Edmonds and Christian Kirk. They brought aboard via free agency Marquise Brown and Darrell Williams. And in the draft, Trey McBride in the 2nd and Keontae Ingram in the 6th. So, Dalton, how are you feeling about your Cardinals, and how do you feel about them for this upcoming season?
I don't feel good, to be honest. I don't feel good. I think the moment, just as a whole, Chandler Jones, we lost him. DeAndre Hopkins, 6-game suspension. Our splits with and without Hopkins are pretty rough. So we're gonna have to go 6 games now. Without our best offensive player. And I think that's going to be tough. Our schedule is not the easiest this year. And it's going to be interesting. I'll be cautiously optimistic about some pieces of it, but I just don't know how we're going to do the first 6 weeks. It's going to be really interesting. I think Marquise Brown is going to be really fun to watch because him and Kyler have that connection. So when you see, wide receivers tend to go to new teams, a lot of times, they do see a decline in production just because they're either unfamiliar with the scheme, it's a new situation, they have to get accustomed to a lot of things. I don't think that's going to be the case with them. They're best friends. They have that chemistry together. I think it's going to be interesting getting AJ Green back as well. He's going to play a lot of outside. Rondale Moore is going to be really interesting. it's the thing with DeAndre Hopkins leaving is that actually doesn't help Rondale Moore. I think it's like it would seem like it would, but when DeAndre Hopkins was out last year, they were like moving Antoine Wesley outside, and they never moved Rondale Moore outside. So I'm extremely excited about Rondale Moore as a player. I just have questions about how they're going to utilize him within that scheme. And it seems like they're almost limiting him to this, yards after catch. We're going to throw you the ball, with an 8 out of 1 or something, and just see what you can do after the catch kind of thing. Which is part of his skill set, but I think he has a lot more to his game that they could unleash. And I think there's a chance that does happen. And in a scenario in which they do allow him to, run a lot more downfield routes, like he could absolutely explode and be a massive second-year breakout. I just have questions about that. And I think that's the biggest question within the Cardinals offense is if Rondale Moore can take the next step, they can be absolutely dynamic there. But if they're kind of pigeonholing him a little bit, we're going to wait until the second half of the season when we get D-Hop and Marquise Brown back until, we really start to see the offense clicking.
Mm-hmm. I like exactly what you said. I no arguments there. So speaking of their new wide receiver, Hollywood, let's go around the room here. Are you drafting him at his current ADP? He's currently 57 overall, a wide receiver 23. I personally feel like that's a fair value for him. I think he'll probably end up finishing above that wide receiver 23 where you have to draft him. But what do you guys think?
Yeah,
okay. Let's start with you.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think it's a great value because there's two cases here. One is you're getting that extra target share while Hopkins has gone the first 6 weeks, which we've seen him already, command a massive target share alongside Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman, even in a low volume offense. So it's clear that, he's somebody that quarterbacks are looking after. Now, when you get Hopkins back, you tend to see a lot of the top wide receivers that score in fantasy, they have another elite wide receiver alongside them. So I think in the first 6 games, we're going to see a bigger target share for Marquise Brown, and he'll do well with that target share. But I think what we're going to see in the second half of the year when Hopkins comes back is going to be much more efficient on his volume. And I think that will actually be when he starts to shine. So I don't like the fact that he moved up in ADP because Hopkins is gone, because I think it works both ways in that sense. But I'm completely fine with him there. He was 1,000-yard receiver last year. He finished top 24. Why would he not do it again in a higher volume pass offense with a quarterback who is more comfortable and familiar with him? Going back to the days, I like it right there.
Mm-hmm. Russ?
The combination of Tyler Huntley and Lamar Jackson were, I believe it was last in the league in accuracy for balls thrown over 20 yards. Kyler Murray was third from the top. You just said it. I pulled it up that points per game, Hollywood finished as wide receiver 21 with Huntley being bad, with Lamar not hitting him on all of these plays where he was, I didn't see them to assume he was open, but I'll believe he was because it makes me happy. And I'm all here. I was thrilled fantasy wise when mind blown when that trade happened in the first place. But, I loved it. That it was to me, that was perfect because I drank the Kool-Aid on hating Hollywood Brown when he was in the draft process. He's small. He can't, BMI Twitter was at its best back then. And then the second he got in the NFL, I'm like, that's wrong. This guy's good. And it always seemed like they did not use him to his potential, especially because they're such a run team. They run a lot of plays in Arizona. So I think it's going to be awesome for Marquise. And you're right. The second Nuke comes back, just picture it. You're going to have, Hollywood running a go route, Nuke running a post route, and then Rondale running a slant. You literally can't cover that. That is going to be ridiculous. And that is going to be so much fun to watch.
Throw in AJ Brown just falling down in the middle of the field and causing a big distraction, or AJ Green, sorry. That's going to be
AJ Brown. That's tough. I just need to get this off my chest real quick because you mentioned AJ Brown and Russ mentioned about the Hollywood trade. I love AJ Brown. Like, that's my guy. And, you know, when the Cardinals traded for Marquise Brown and they traded first round pick, you know, my first reaction was, you know, like, that's fine. Get Kyler his guy. You know, they're in contract negotiations with him. Like, it's kind of a good faith thing. He's a good wide receiver, all that. And then, you know, 5 minutes later, you know, you're watching the draft and then you see the Titans just absolutely trade away AJ Brown for exactly the same thing that the Cardinals did. And then now I'm sitting there and I'm just tilting my face off. Like, I'm not going to curse on the show, but like, what the hell are we doing, guys? What the heck are we doing? HE double hockey sticks doing over here? Like, unbelievable. So, yeah, I mean, it still hurts. It still hurts deep down, but gosh, yeah.
I'm sorry to divert your attention with that Freudian slip.
First and a third.
I feel like you purposely threw in an AJ Brown comment. Right
I just knew it was going to get your goat somehow. Alexis, what do you think about Hollywood Brown this year?
I think he's going to do great. I've always been a fan of him. Drafted him in my rookie draft for my Dynasty League the year that he came out. And I think it's a real opportunity for him with DeAndre Hopkins not being able to play. I mean, the first 6 games, I mean, that's your guy. That's wide receiver 1. So, you know, and I think that he does have the opportunity, even when Hopkins does come back, like Russ was saying. I mean, he fits right into kind of like this trio role where all those receivers play their own role. I just am like, I really like Rondale Moore, and I don't want him to kind of be like shoved into the shadows and just kind of like forgotten and not used, because they have all these other great receivers. You know, AJ Green, Andy Isabella as well. You know, I don't really know if he's actually done good in the league or not, but I liked him coming out. So, yeah, I'm very curious to see how the receiver situation plays out in Arizona. But I mean, I would definitely draft Marquise Brown in any leagues I was doing this year. Yeah, I'd be surprised if him and Kyler like completely just didn't do well. I don't see a situation where that happens. So, yeah, I'm in on him.
All right,
Top 8 season. I'm saying it.
Everyone's in on him. We're all drinking the Kool-Aid this year. I love it. Let's move over to the backfield. I want to talk James Conner here just briefly. Had a great season last year for fantasy. Buoyed a lot by those touchdowns. Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously. I think that will come down a little bit this year. But do y'all see him being that bell cow running back for them now that Chase Edmonds has left? Or do you see some of these rookies or guys coming off the bench here that haven't had a lot of draft capital, but maybe they'll get their opportunity now? Dalton, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be the bell cow. I'm not going to be drafting him anywhere. I think he's overpriced right now, and a lot of it's based on what he did last year, and there's this projection of what he's going to do this year. I do think a big component to it that we saw towards the end of last year was he was getting utilized in the receiving game a little bit. So that's going to be a big factor in how well he does. I think the touchdowns, it's pretty unsustainable. They signed Darrell Williams. The guy I'm really excited about is Eno Benjamin. Like, I'm stoked about him. Cliff Kingsbury, one of the combine, was talking a bunch about him, has even said recently how much they love him. So I wouldn't even be surprised if Eno Benjamin ends up as the number 2. I mean, Kingsbury literally said like he could be like a starter. So I think it's Eno Benjamin potentially who takes some of the role there. Yeah, I mean that's the way I'm attacking it is I'm gonna fade Connor. I'm gonna take like last round of drafts in every single one of my drafts, and he has a 3-down skill set. Was productive in college. He's literally like the way I comp him is like almost like a Devin Singletary or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's like a third stringer. Like, he's the same type of running back as those guys, and he just hasn't really like fully gotten the opportunity yet. I mean, his first game he played last year, I'll never forget this. I was lit, and he I remember he took one carry, and this was against the Niners. I wish I had a Niners person here so I could absolutely. But I remember like he took one in the hole and he absolutely just trucked like Drake Kirkpatrick into the ground, touchdown. But he has juice. He has juice. And the good thing about him too is he is off the field. Like, he's a great locker room guy. So he graduated early from college. He was a junior at the Senior Bowl. Like he's a locker room guy. Coaches love him. Good skill set on the field. Like he checks a lot of the boxes you're looking for in a sleeper running back. And I think Eno Benjamin did absolutely smash this year.
Oh, nice. I will keep that locked up here. So I was, while you're talking about that, I pulled up the current ADP, and right now James Conner is going 16th overall for running backs, not overall in the draft, but 16th running back. Going right after him, we've got Cam Akers, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Gibson, Josh Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins. Alexis, would you draft Connor over all these running backs I named, or is that just way too high?
It's way too high. That's just my opinion. And I like James Conner. It's not a diss towards James Conner. But yeah, I think for the particular running backs that you mentioned, I would be drafting them over him in terms of like my faith of them being productive next season. But yeah, I don't really know what to think about like the running back situation in Arizona. I'm not, it's not something I look at obviously too much, but from the outside looking in, it looks like James Conner is going to take that bell cow type of role. That's just, what I see looking at their depth chart. I like, Benjamin as well. I'd like to see him play more. I think I'm curious how they're going to use Keontae Ingram, who they drafted in the 6th round, I believe. I wasn't like as high on Ingram as everyone else was, but I feel that the Cardinals like are. So I'm curious what type of role he's going to have. But like just looking at their depth chart, it looks like James Conner is going to get most of the work. And maybe that is based off of last season's results. Maybe it's not, but I don't foresee him being like one of the top or even mid-tier running backs in the league this year. I think he'll do fine though, but I'm surprised that he's ranked that high.
Mm-hmm. Russ, are you surprised he's that high, and are you going to draft him there?
Redraft, I think that's fine. Dynasty, I'll take pretty much all of those guys over him, and that's mostly an age thing. But you ever notice that Steve Keim seems like a bad Devy player? Eno Benjamin, Keontae Ingram, Rondale Moore, all 3 guys that like a year and a half before they were draft eligible were like top Devy prospects. And then they had a really bad last year, or, Rondale was hurt the entire, and then they all just dropped. But he still went and got them anyway.
He can't let go.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I do the same crap also, but, I don't get paid for it. I really do like Keontae Ingram, though, and I was a big Eno fan. But it seems like whenever Connor stays healthy, he's really good. And, when Lev Bell held out, Connor could have made a ton of money for himself if he just chose not to get hurt that year instead of last year. He kept hurting his ankles. He kept getting hurt, but he stayed healthy when he had that workload last year. And if he could do that again, I don't see why. I mean, running back 16, that's not that hard to do if you stay healthy. And he's in a very good offense, and their running backs do score touchdowns, and he is very good at scoring touchdowns, we've seen. So, I mean, is there a chance for him to finish as like RB 1 through 5? Probably not, even if he is like one of the few people to stay healthy. But I mean, I don't feel too bad taking him around 16. I think there's less risk taking him than there is. Who do you need, like Akers and Josh Jacobs? Like I would feel safer in this season. I want Dobbins to be healthy so bad. I love that man. I feel safer with Connor than I do those 3 guys this season. But yeah, no redraft. I would take him around there. But yeah, dynasty probably not.
Okay. Well, I think that'll finish it up for the Cardinals here. Let's move over to your Seahawks here, Russ.
If we have
losses. Yes, we have to. It's part of the division. Come on.
And we can't end on the Seahawks because we can't end on such a downer note.
That's right. So losses, Russell Wilson, Gerald Everett, possibly Alex Collins, still unsigned. We don't know. Notable additions, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and Marquise Goodwin. In the draft, 2nd round, Kenneth Walker III, and then a couple 7th round wide receivers in Bull Melton and Derek Young. So, Russ, how do you feel about the Seahawks moves this offseason and the outlook for the upcoming season here?
I am only happy that they didn't take Kenneth Walker in the first. I'm not happy they took him, but I'm glad that they didn't take him in the first, because it's a stupid, like last year, I'm like, oh, the Seahawks are going to take Trey Sermon in the first. That's such a Seahawks thing to do. Thankfully, that didn't happen, but I don't know, man. Like, I love the idea of Drew Lock being the quarterback for the Seahawks, because it's okay. Hold on. Let's take a step back. Russell Wilson is very, 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 very good at playing quarterback. And people that didn't actually notice how he was used or why he was used the way he was hated his situation, because they just let Russ cook. The reason they paid him that money, the reason they kept him there, was because they only wanted to throw the ball 22 times a game. Russell Wilson can complete 20 or 22 of those 20 or 22 passes. That's how good he is. And now they have Drew Lock, who we hope can complete 2 of those 22. Like, this is not going to be pretty, and it's going to be hilarious. There's these rumors about them trading for Baker, which half of me would love, because I love Baker. Like, I liked him as a prospect. He is entertaining as hell as a person. And those progressive, or is it progressive commercials? I don't remember what company it is, but those insurance commercials he does are fantastic. Like, top the tier. Next Peyton Manning, not football wise, but commercial wise. Let's do it. But spending something on him, and again, because I don't trust John Schneider, the GM, at all to be smart about it, like, they're probably going to give a first or a second for him when the Browns literally can't get rid of him. And if that happens, I'm going to be so annoyed about it. But if they can get him for like a 5th or a 6th, or hell, give him a 5th and a 6th, I would love it. Just because, like, I would get a custom-made jersey that just says Baker instead of Mayfield on it, because that's more fun. And also, part of me, like, their running game's not going to be good this year. And I think that's a huge trap that everyone loves Kenneth Walker. Their offensive line is bad. And if you look into the linemen they did draft, they're both pass blockers. Like, usually, because they had Russell Wilson, who was a magician under 6 defensive linemen and still didn't get tackled somehow, they never bothered. All of their linemen, they were bullies. All they could do was push forward. The second they had to take a step backwards, they may as well just sat down. And they fixed that a little bit. So their run game is not going to be very good. And that makes me excited for DK Metcalf, because whether it is Baker, who was for some reason celebrated for his accuracy in college, but can't hit the broadside of a barn in the NFL, or if it is Drew Lock, DK Metcalf is tall enough, fast enough, and long enough. All you have to do is throw it within like 5 feet of him, and he'll find a way to somehow magically come up with the ball. And I think that's good enough. And again, I don't think it'll be good, but I think it'll be fun. And
super entertaining.
Yeah, in a season where they're going to be bad, that's all I could ask for. Like, part of me hopes they do just tank the hell out of it and go get it, because they have 2 firsts, next draft. So even if they end up with the 5th or 6th pick, they can easily move up to go get one of those quarterbacks, or just wait till 5 and grab the 5th one, because there's supposed to be like 19 quarterbacks drafted in the first round next year.
So, or they could draft 2 running backs in the first round.
Do you want me just to quit this right now and just cry? I will cry to the point where my tears short out my laptop. If it has to be bad, it might as well be entertaining. That's really what I'm at. Plus, the rest of the division is just really good on offense, and the Seahawks defense is going to be like historically bad. So again, it's going to be fun, but it won't be good.
Can I just say real quick, because you mentioned DK Metcalf, and everybody has written off DK Metcalf. So I think you're the first person that I've heard vocalize like he should at least be able to do something here, because I don't think anybody else shares that faith. So that's
he's
nice
not gonna. We all want him to be the wide receiver 1. That was never going to happen because he was on the Seahawks. Like I'm sorry, even when they were good, and when DK was good, man, his ceiling was like 8-ish, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, but he was never like. At one point, his ADP in Dynasty hit wide receiver 3, and even I started selling him at that point. I'm like, that's not right. That's not going to happen. But like, I can easily still see him finishing as like wide receiver 12, 14, 10, like that based on talent alone. That's not that outlandish. And then next year, again, at least get a running back that can throw really well, in the first round. And it could only get better. So, like, in Dynasty, I think he's a great buy right now that'll score you enough points to be okay, but not enough points to make your draft pick too much better if you're tanking, because the dude's still like 21. So, like, to me, he's an easy buy right now because like you said, everyone's down on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's currently at wide receiver 15, and which I was a little surprised. I thought it was going to be a little bit lower than that, to be honest. But I think what you said is right. I think that's a reasonable outcome for him. Now, what about his teammate Lockett? He's currently at wide receiver 34. Do you think this offense will be able to support 2 top 36 wide receivers?
Okay, I'm really glad you changed it to 36. Probably, but it won't be pretty. Like, Lockett was always disappear for 3 games and score 44 points the next. I don't think there's a way of escaping that right now. Like, Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett had a thing. Like, they must have been, the whole eating breakfast together every morning with Stafford and Kupp. Like, they must have been doing that for like 5 years, because that one season where they literally had a perfect passer rating to each other, like, that's not human. That's not supposed to happen. It's going to be rough for Tyler Lockett. I hope he does well. I really wanted him to follow Wilson wherever he went, though I'm glad he didn't, because I love Sutton and Judy, so I don't want another. I mean, they already have Tim Patrick, the best wide receiver in the league, so they don't need Lockett also. But like, I really wanted the Seahawks to like blow it up, burn it down, whatever, and just get whatever they could for Lockett, because I wanted him to go somewhere where he'll be appreciated, because he won't be this year. Mm-hmm. And then he's going to be 30.
Yeah. So before I cut you off there, Dalton, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, as great initials, DK. I'm always balling out with that.
Analysis.
I'm done. Cut me off. Mute me. No, I actually really like DK. Again, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. Like, I'm a big believer in talent, and obviously there's quarterbacks that can elevate talent to a certain extent, but you're always within a certain range of what your talent is. And he might be on the lower end of what he is, but he's still like one of the best wide receivers in the league. He has another good wide receiver alongside him who's going to help take some coverage off. I think the Seahawks are going to suck, meaning that they're going to have to be forced to throw the ball, which Pete Carroll might still run the ball down 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, because, I mean, it's Pete Carroll. But you never know what's going to happen there. And I think anytime that you can bet on talent and kind of just be like quarterback agnostic in a way, and just trust that DK Metcalf is going to get his, they're going to find a way to get him the ball. I'm a big believer in that. So I'm fine drafting him there at wide receiver 15, considering he's been like, in second year in the league, he was a top 5 wide receiver. And then last year, I mean, even balling out when he was healthy. So I'm playing, or when Russ was healthy, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Alexis, are you on board with the DK train, or would you rather take the value of Lockett?
I'm a huge DK fan. I want nothing but good things for him. So I'm on. I believe in him. I believe in Lockett too. I do think it is going to be kind of interesting seeing how Lockett plays without Russell Wilson. I am curious to see that. But I'm from St. Louis. Drew Lock went to Mizzou. Mizzou's not my like NCAA team, but I do appreciate them being from where I'm from. So I hope that Drew Lock does well. Do I think he will? No. But I've been telling Seahawks fans, hey, the Seahawks should let Drew Lock play the entire season, see what happens. He could do really well, get the right people around him. He could thrive, probably not, but like it could happen. A miracle could ensue. And if he doesn't, you have those first 2 round picks next year. And it's going to be a very, very good draft for franchise quarterbacks next year. So, you really don't have anything to lose by just kind of letting it all burn down, potentially seeing what happens and going for it. So that's why I was saying that I don't even think they should trade for Baker Mayfield. I don't think they will at this point because I don't think the Browns are going to be getting rid of him. But even if they could trade for Baker or somebody else, I don't think they should. I think that they should just let the Drew Lock experiment ensue and just see what happens.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then we're going to finish this Seahawks conversation up real quick. I want a one-word answer out of each of you. So the running backs right now, it's basically a toss-up. You got Penny going 88th overall and Walker going 92nd. Who do you want? Russ.
Walker. Penny's great, but he's just going to get hurt again. So Walker. I know you said one word, but I don't do well with one word.
Alexis?
Walker.
Dalton?
Penny.
Wrong.
That's my guy. I want Penny too. I want those 4 games, damn it. I'll take all 4 of them and I'll love it.
I mean, also, you're asking a Seahawks fan to now back one of like the worst first-round picks.
He's not bad. Whenever he plays, he's fine.
Yeah, he would have been a great third-round pick.
It's Pete Carroll's fault.
Oh, Carroll and Schneider should have been fired like 6 years ago. Like, move on. But yeah, that was a terrible, terrible pick. Even not knowing how it would have turned out, that was so bad. People were calling us to trade for him right after we picked him. No, they weren't.
Yeah.
Shut up.
All right, let's move on to the Super Bowl champion Rams here. They lost one of our favorite players here on this podcast, Robert Woods. Sony Michel and OBJ has not re-signed. Don't know if he's going to be back or not. They brought in Allen Robinson, and then in the draft, they had Kyron Williams in the 5th. So, Alexis, are they going to repeat? What are your thoughts for the Rams for this upcoming season and some of the moves they've made?
Back-to-back champions. I'm all in. I really believe it. If everyone stays healthy, of course, and nothing crazy happens. Yeah, I really believe it. I am really bummed about the loss to Robert Woods. It was something that I think we kind of all saw coming. I think that, like, especially with the way that Odell Beckham played for us, the quarterback room was kind of crowded, and I think it just, sadly, I think that we felt that Woods was going to get traded. I didn't particularly agree with it, but I saw that it was coming. But yeah, I'm really optimistic. Kyron Williams was my favorite player in the draft. Literally, I was for months screaming about how I wanted him on the Rams, and everyone was like getting really, really tired of it. And then he got drafted by the Rams, and everyone could not believe it because they're like, what are the odds that the one player she's been rambling about ends up on her team? So I'm very excited about that. He's from St. Louis. We're from the same hometown. He went to my NCAA school, Notre Dame. So double win and now triple win. He's on my favorite NFL team. So big Kyron Williams fan over here. But yeah, I think that they are going to repeat. I think they have all the tools in place to do so. I don't really think that any of their losses are that significant. I think obviously I'm kind of curious about how Allen Robinson does this season. I'm not going to lie. I think I'm a little lower on him than everyone else is, like Rams fans wise. But yeah, I do think that if everything works out for them health wise, they will be going back to the Super Bowl.
Nice. Hard to argue with that there. So I know you just brought up Allen Robinson, and you're a little bit lower than it seems than everyone else. Do you think he is going to rebound though this season? I know personally, I think he's going to have a rebound season. Is he going to be like, top 12 or something? No, I don't think so. I think he's going to be a solid wide receiver 2 for your squad if you're able to get him. But what do you think?
I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity because after Kupp's season last season, teams are really going to be focused on Cooper Kupp. And I think it's going to open kind of like this window for Allen Robinson, kind of in the way that it did for Odell Beckham Jr. or like a Van Jefferson last season, because Kupp was having such a good season that teams kind of seem to just focus on him. So I think it's an opportunity for Allen Robinson. I'm a little sketched out because I live in Chicago. So I watched a lot of Allen Robinson over the past few seasons, and it was not very good. I know that he didn't really have great quarterbacks, but I will say that even I felt last season Justin Fields actually gave him a lot. And I felt that Allen Robinson didn't like particularly play as well as he should have. So when we signed him, I was like a little, well, one, I didn't think we were going to sign a receiver like that at all. I did not see that coming. So I was surprised by that, but I was surprised with the Allen Robinson signing, but it is kind of grown on me. I'm cautiously optimistic about how he performs next season. I think it is going to be kind of a make or break thing for him to show us what he can do. But I do think he is going to get a lot of targets because I don't think that Cup's teams are going to allow Cup to kind of have as many receptions or targets as he did last season. So I think guys like Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson are going to have a lot more opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Dalton, do you agree?
I don't even know what to think about Allen Robinson, right? So he's like legitimately was like one of the better wide receivers in the league. And then last year he was terrible, like straight up. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder how much that contract situation with Chicago maybe like dismotivated him from playing there. And now he's going to be on a new team, in which last year the Bears, their offense was just bad overall. So he wasn't in an ideal situation. And we saw with Odell Beckham too, when Odell wasn't in the most ideal situation. Browns went over to the Rams, and he was able to get unlocked a little bit. So I'm like cautiously optimistic on Allen Robinson. I would actually not be surprised if he finishes like a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy this year. Like I'm not going to project that, but am I shocked if that happens? No. Am I shocked if Allen Robinson just like is taken over by Van Jefferson? He's the wide receiver 3 in this offense. Also no. So I'm not really going to put a stamp on him, but I do think he has this really like interesting range where he was a very good wide receiver who just had a bad year, bouncing back and is still a good wide receiver, or this is the first part of the decline for him, like as he slowly faces out of the league.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Russ? What do you think?
You guys are wrong. He's awesome. Allen Robinson literally just did not try last season. He didn't want to be there. They tagged him. He signed it because that is a lot of money and there was nothing else he could do about it. And then just made sure he didn't get hurt. I mean, and then what do? You go to the best offense in the league. I mean, yeah, go. Yes, absolutely. I am all in. Well, first of all, I need to go back a second and say, I was borderline on tears watching Odell Beckham tear his ACL in the Super Bowl. Like,
me too.
I was a fan of the guy. You know, I saw him play live. It's hard not to get swept up in that one-handed catch when you're surrounded by Giants fans and everything. And okay, yeah, his personality went a little off the wall because kids can't always handle fame. But he was always really good. And then all those injuries, and it's just like, oh, come on, man, just stay healthy. And then in the Super Bowl, he was crushing it. And then he crushed his knee. But that sucks. And now I just want him to go somewhere else because I want Allen Robinson's season. I think it's going to be great. This is going to be miles and miles the best quarterback he's ever played with. And it's going to be an offense where he's not the best player there anymore, which, again, is going to be weird for him. And, yeah, let 3 people go cover Cooper Kupp. That's really hard to say because they need you. Because in the Super Bowl, there was like 4 or 5 people covering him, and he still won them the Super Bowl. Like, I think it's going to be great for the rest of the offense. And Allen Robinson, I think, is insanely good. And to go back to Kyren Williams for a second, are you worried about Cam Akers catching the ball? Because Kyren Williams is very, very good at catching the ball. And it's one of those weird things where he ran slowly in the combine. So all of a sudden he's bad. So he didn't get drafted highly. Like,
Exactly.
Like, that's what worries me a little bit. Like, okay, you can't gauge much on what happened in the playoffs for Akers because He shouldn't have been able to walk, no less play football.
True.
But I don't believe they passed to him in front of the line of scrimmage more than like a handful of times. Like anytime they were passing in front of the line, it was to Darrell Henderson. And honestly, I just think Kyren Williams is a better pass catcher than Henderson is. So I'm a little worried about Akers' upside with that. But if that means Kyren Williams does well, I'm cool with that because I like him too.
Yeah, I think that you're spot on with that. I think Cam Akers is kind of going. I think he's going to be running back number one for the Rams, like in terms of running the ball. I think he's going to significantly, get the most amount of runs with that. But Darrell Henderson is a good receiving running back. The problem with Darrell Henderson is like he can't stay healthy. And so I'm concerned about that. I think that had a lot to do with why we drafted Kyren Williams. I think Kyren Williams, like Russ mentioned, he's a great receiver. What they drafted him for is actually pass protection. If you go Google like Kyren Williams, just pass protection alone, it's insane. I mean, he's not a very big receiver, but he was bodying guys. Kyren pass blocking highlights are fun. I agree. Like he is insane in pass pro, which is kind of Darrell Henderson's also good in pass pro. But again, I don't know that he can stay healthy. So I think that Kyren can kind of do it all. He's a really good receiving back. People think he's slow because of his 40 time, but you need to watch him actually play because he's very shifty. He's very hard to bring down, elusive. I'm very excited to watch him play. But in terms of, Cam Akers, I don't foresee getting a ton of receptions. I don't see him being used really as a receiving back, especially when you have guys like Darrell Henderson and Kyren Williams. But I think he's fine in that regard. Like it's not like he can't catch a ball. I'd say he's pretty like average in that aspect. I just don't think the Rams will use him in that way.
Mm-hmm. So is there a world then where, say, for whatever reason, Kyren Williams balls out this season? What do you think the Rams would be interested in trading Cam Akers and at that point and running with Williams as their bell cow in this offense?
I don't foresee them trading Cam Akers, but I could see a situation where we lose Darrell Henderson, via like free agency or a trade. I can't off the top of my head. I don't remember where his contract's at right now, but no, I don't think that. I think that Cam and Kyren are just two very different running backs. And I think that the Rams would like to keep both of them and utilize them, with what they're good at. I think if anyone were to be let go, sadly, it'd be Darrell Henderson, who I really love.
Since last year, isn't it? 19, 20, 21, 22. Because he was drafted the year before Akers was, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think if they lose anybody, it'd be him. But I definitely can see a situation where eventually Kyren is the main running back for the Rams. And I know a lot of people, Rams fans I'm talking about, don't like it when I say that, but I can see that happening.
I love Henderson too. That makes me sad, the thought of him having to be the castaway out of that group, but it does make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And then one last question here, because I'm trying to be cognizant of everyone's time here. Tyler Higbee, is he going to be a viable tight end option this season? Got to end on a tight end note.
Could you pick a better one to talk about?
No. This is who we get.
No.
Actually, no, let's talk about Ertz and McBride. That'll make me happier. No, Tyler Higbee's not going to be a thing.
I think Tyler Higbee is going to be fine. I think that he just plays his role. I don't think he's in. I wouldn't say that he's like going to be great. I wouldn't say that it's going to be terrible. I do think it is. I do think that he has a good connection with Stafford. I mean, they had a lot of really good moments last season. You watch Tyler Higbee step up, but you talk about injuries as well. I mean, Tyler Higbee could be worse, but he's starting to kind of, here and there, he has had those injuries, especially in the playoffs last year. I forget if it was the NFC Championship game, I think, where he was out the entire game, or he got hurt pretty early on in the game, and we ended up using Kendall Blanton and Bryson Hopkins, who stepped up to my surprise with Hopkins. But Kendall Blanton he played really, really well for the Rams when Tyler Higbee was hurt last season. So he would be someone to watch out for. But yeah, I don't really know how I feel about Tyler Higbee going into this season. I just think it's kind of he'll do okay.
Mm-hmm. Dalton, if you're punting the tight end position, would Higbee be someone you'd be focusing on later on in your draft?
I never punt the tight end position, so
that answers that.
I should really take that advice because I'm not good at punting the tight end position, but I do it all the time.
I wish I could give you a better answer.
No, that is a perfect answer and a perfect way to end the show here. So I'm going to let everybody go around here and tell us what you're doing out there in the fantasy sphere, where people can find you, anything that you want to promote right now. This is your time to shine. So Alexis, as the Super Bowl champion team here, let's start with you.
Man. Well, my podcast, Downtown Rams, is where I talk about the Rams with my co-host Jake. And that's really fun. We do that. You can stream that anywhere, watch it on YouTube. I do a lot of the live YouTube streams. So you can check out my YouTube channel. It's just my name, nothing special, but I try to get on 2 to 3 nights a week to live stream, talk with people about football. Fantasy wise, my goal is to cut back on the leagues I'm in this year because I overdid it last year. I was in like 15 leagues. It was insane. I had a problem. It was very stressful. So yeah, that's pretty much it with me. And then trying to go to a lot of Rams games this year, like in other cities other than LA too. I'm going to you guys are Green Bay fans. I'm going to the game at Lambeau Field this year. So I'm excited.
Nice.
Should be a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as things shake out the right way. I'm not gonna do. Maybe they'll end in a tie. That would be a nice experience too.
No, that wouldn't. That's terrible for everyone, Jake.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Russ. Your time.
I do too many things. Well, first of all, if 15 leagues is too many, I run 16, one of which is a 48-team league. What do? I have to go by day what I do. Trade Addicts podcast, the weekly grind on the DLF YouTube, the DLF Trade Show also on DLF YouTube, Dynasty Game Night, Dynasty Wall Street, Dynasty Trade Calculator flagship podcast. I ran out of fingers. Probably that stuff. But right now, what really matters, ffpodshirts.storeenvy.com. We are pumping out SFB shirts like crazy. And every single penny from all of the stuff on that site goes straight to Fantasy Cares. So ffpodshirts.storeenvy.com. Amazingly huge shout out to John Bosch, Bob Gilchrist, and Steven Johnson, who have been just crushing it with all of this stuff. So buy some stuff, get some awesome stuff, and help kids get awesome stuff for holidays.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, Dalton, last but certainly not least.
Yeah, a lot. I just started a job at Mojo. So Mojo is going to be like a new sports stock market right now. So we're going to be launching first week of the season. So I'm super excited about that. So I'm going to be putting out a lot of like blog dynasty related content that works with, the stock market within Mojo. So super excited about that. And then this is the first time, this is not an announcement. This is the first time I've mentioned this publicly, but I'm working on some fun things in the betting sphere with some people. So keep an eye on for that in the coming weeks. So very excited about what's going on.
Nice. And then, as always, folks, you can find our lovely podcast on YouTube. Just type in Drinking Talking Fantasy Football. We're the only ones. You'll find us there. Find us at Drinking Fantasy on the Twitter box. We're here to answer all your fantasy related questions or any questions you want to ask. We're not, picky about that. I I think that about covers it. I just want to give a big thank you to our 3 guests for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun chatting it up with you all and hearing your thoughts on this super interesting division. Any last words, Jake, before we're out?
No, you took all the good ones, but yes, absolutely. Thank you. And it lived up to expectations. I said at the start, it's one of the most interesting, exciting divisions, and I maintain that. So can't wait to check back in here after the season and see how everything shook out.
Dustin, you were not old enough to say Twitter's box. I'm putting it out there. Come on, man. Do better.
Appreciate it.
Well, I'm probably older than you think, but that's I appreciate that. Thanks. All right. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.